This encounter happened when I was about 13 years old. My parents would take me and my older brother to the indoor pool once a week after dinner to get some exercise they were in dire need of. They'd always leave for another pool while me and my brother would hang out in the kiddie pool because it's warmer than the others, and we generally just talked about this and that. The pool was pretty empty around the evenings anyway, but sometimes there'd be actual children, often with their parents, playing in the water. One of those nights, me and my brother dived around with our swimming goggles on, and I saw something I wish I hadn't. An adult male was in the deeper end of the kiddie pool, and he was showing off his junk under the surface of the water. I raised my head out of the water and nervously checked him out. He was at least 40 years old, with ginger hair and a bit of a beard, and stick thin. His face was weird. It was as if he was smiling blissfully, but almost smug. I was a naive child, so I thought he must have been some father who really had to pee and didn't want to soil his underwear, but something felt off. I felt alarmed and doubted what I saw was real, so I dived down again to verify. And indeed, he was pulling down his Speedos underwater. Some children below the age of 10 were blissfully ignorant of this, and he didn't approach anyone either, so I tried to forget what I had seen, made some excuse to my brother, and we went to the Olympic pool. Before leaving, I was washing off the pool water in the shower room with my mother and trying to make light-hearted conversation. I told her about the weird man peeing in the kiddie pool. She didn't laugh, and instead took me by the hand to the staff from the pool. I slowly realized that I had in fact seen an exhibitionist pedophile and retold the story to the staff. Apparently, the staff had heard stories of a man like that hanging around the pools sometimes before, so they immediately sent staff members to all the pools to look for a man fitting my description, but apparently he had already left at this point. My mom made me promise to tell her immediately if I ever saw someone like that again, and we drove home. We never saw that man again after that, and stopped our regular visits to the pool soon after, since it was a pretty far drive every time. I never really thought about that man again until 2 years later on my way home from school. I live at the very last stop, and the tram is usually empty by then, but this time it wasn't empty by the time we approached the second to last stop. I turned around, and there he was, a ginger man in his 40s. Honestly, I had no idea what to do, and he didn't seem to notice my presence whatsoever. I briefly wondered if I should tell the tram driver, but what was I going to say? Help, I saw this guy's junk in a pool 2 years ago, call the police. I didn't do anything. I was just relieved as he got off the tram one stop before mine. I never saw him again after this, but the fact that he is probably still out there and might live close to me scares me. It also occurred to me that his creepy expression might be an indicator of a mental disability, as there is a communal apartment for people with such disabilities right at the tram stop he got off at. I'm glad I never found out. When I was 16 or 17, I worked as a lifeguard at a private pool in my neighborhood. You had to be a member, and each member was assigned a member ID. You could buy a friend a guest pass. During the summers on Friday night, we had what was called Friday Night Cheers, where we would have a band play, the adults would sit around the bar and drink, and all the kids would come and swim till about 10 p.m. One night I was working Cheers, and I was at the diving well, and there was a guy and his friend trying to splash me while going off the diving board. I didn't think anything of it because every kid tries to splash the lifeguard. As it was getting close to closing, I started to go around and clean up all the tables. The diving board guy started to follow me around and make small talk. I'm a very friendly person, so I started having a conversation with him. He tells me his name and that he is 19 and home from college. He then asks me for my number. I tell him no, I don't give out my number to strangers, and that I have a boyfriend. Not sure if I did at the time or not. He won't stop asking, saying he just wants to be friends, so I leave and go sit in the guard shack. A couple days later, I'm working, and he's there again. We aren't supposed to talk to people while on duty, but he won't go away, so I start to ignore him. He stops talking, but just kind of hangs out in the water right by me. A guy I work with comes to take my spot so I can go relieve another guard at another station. The guy follows, but I ignore him. this continues every day. One day I get a text from a number that I don't know. I ask who it is, and it's the guy from the pool. The only way I can think that he got my number is from our schedule that hangs in the guard shack right by the door, which is always open. I tell him he needs to stop texting me and following me around. The texts stop, but he continues to come to the pool every day and follow me. I finally tell my manager, and she says the next time he comes in that they'll make sure he really is a member. Sometimes people will give their friends their member number if they know a picture isn't attached to it on the computer. So he comes in and they ask for an ID. It doesn't match the information on the computer, and he says he's about 27 years old. I don't know why, but they let him in anyway. He comes over to me, and as soon as he gets 5 feet away, my manager comes over and tells me to go take my break. I come back 15 minutes later, and now the cops were there. Apparently he had tried to argue and forcefully push security away when they asked him to leave. I watched him taken away in handcuffs, and I'm thankful that I never have to see him again. Growing up in a small Christian community, I was very sheltered compared to other children my age, and there were a lot of red flags I didn't understand. I never really thought there were certain individuals that you just don't approach, so naturally at a young age I was very trusting of almost anyone. I'm from the Midwest, and our summers are very humid, often having highs of 100+ degrees. My dad worked less during the summer months, and so he took us to the local pool because it was cheap and he could take naps and tan. Now, this pool is not a pool for all age groups. It's intended for children mainly, and if adults are in the pool, it is typically only to keep a closer eye on their kids. My elder siblings liked the water slides, but because I was too afraid of them, I was often left to my own devices. I couldn't swim, and still to this day I've never learned. So what I spent most of my time doing was walking around with my head underwater or snorkeling. While snorkeling, I often found left-behind toys and would put them in the lost and found box. Most of the time, as far as I can tell, I was the only person doing so. One day, while I'm at my usual routine, I see a cylinder-shaped object that was very bright pink floating around. I looked closer and saw a man sitting cross-legged at the bottom of the pool, smiling with his hand near the object. I've never seen a penis before. Well, an adult penis. I had a brother around my same age. Siblings, you know how it goes. And I had no idea as a child that this man was masturbating at the bottom of the pool. He noticed me and smiled, and I got closer to try to pick up the toy near him, but I was not able to take it with me, and upon closer inspection, I realized it was his penis. I immediately felt extremely embarrassed and noped the fuck out of there, but as I was pulling away, he grabbed my hand and tried to keep it to his junk. This scared the shit out of me, and that's the first sign of danger I felt from him. I was able to get away, but for the rest of the time in the pool, I laid next to my napping father. I was around 9 years old, and I didn't realize this man was a pedophile. A few minutes later, I noticed him resurface, and he stared at me for prolonged periods of time. His eyes were similar to an animal's. It made me feel really scared and grossed out, and I woke up my father crying, saying I didn't feel well. I often got chlorine sickness, and asked if we could go home. He told me to grab my elder siblings, and after that we packed up and left. I never saw that man again after this event, and I really hope he never returned to that pool, but I find that very doubtful. As I got older and learned more about these sorts of things, it made me feel sick to my stomach. I'm 20 now, but I can remember that man so well. I've only told my mom about this, but not to the full extent of what happened. So parents or people that watch kids, please be extra careful with your kids and keep a close eye on them at the pool. If you sense they are being bothered by something, ask them. Otherwise, they might just keep quiet about a potential predator. Also, does anyone know how he managed to sit cross-legged at the bottom of the pool without floating up? That shit creeps me out. This happened about a year ago. I'm a male, big guy, ex-football player. I'm in my late 20s. I live in a nice neighborhood in Arizona. Needless to say, I don't have much to fear at night. I had 2 roommates living with me at the time, so there always seemed to be someone with me at night. I got home late from a business trip around midnight, came into the house, exhausted, and dropped everything and went to bed. I am a heavy sleeper, so it takes something loud to wake me. Around 3 a.m., I hear a loud ghetto knocking on my door. It sounded like someone was kicking my door down. I had never heard anything like it before. Though it was a Saturday, I figured my roommates had gone out to the bars and forgot their keys. Begrudgingly, I stumbled out of bed, walking down the hallway in the dark, and noticed all the bedroom doors are open and no roommates to be found. It must be them. They're messing with me. I arrive at my front door and look through the peephole and see a young woman, homeless looking but actually kind of cute. She had a really baggy sweatshirt on with jeans and a beanie. Might I remind you, this is Arizona in the dead of summer. It had to be 95 degrees at this time. This was odd. She was frantic, almost like she was being chased, so I was just going to open the door and make sure that she was okay, but then she started laughing, like a scary laugh, which this stopped me in my tracks. Then she proceeded to yell, "I need to pee, let me in!" Over and over for a good 5 minutes. I just stood there behind the door in silence, watching through the peephole. I wasn't scared at this moment. I was just annoyed and about to yell at her to get out of here. Then all of a sudden, she just turns and hopscotched down my driveway like a child. Just thought to myself, this girl is whacked out on drugs or something. I go back to bed. 30 minutes later, I'm just about to fall back to sleep, and that same ghetto knock happens again. I'm furious at this point, about to run out there and open the door and give this woman a piece of my mind. But I look through the peephole first, and it's a male. He is dressed in practically the same outfit as the woman. He is a scrawny-looking male, not a physical presence by any means, but he looks just as whacked out as her. I can see her behind the guy, jumping up and down laughing. He is looking to the peephole, yelling, "Yo, my girl has to pee, let us in." Now I'm a little freaked out, not going to lie. I have seen a lot of situations like this in horror movies, so I just back away from the door, go to the kitchen, grab a knife, go back to my room, and sit in my closet. I'm kind of laughing to myself about how ridiculous the situation is. I figured if they're going to break in, at least they wouldn't see me at first in the closet, and I could launch a counterattack. 2 hours pass, no more noises, and I fall asleep in my closet with a knife in hand. Then I hear tapping on my bedroom window. It startles me awake. My bedroom is on the first floor and is accessible from the backyard. The lights are off, so I creep over to the window and push aside slowly one of the blinds. It's the woman, peering into my bedroom, but not looking directly at me, just subtly tapping the window. And off in the distance was the guy, butt-ass naked, doing cannonballs into my pool. I instinctively, without thinking, yell, "Yo, get out of my pool, you idiot!" Which brings her attention to me. We make eye contact. We are inches away from each other, and eyes wide open, she had the scariest smile and starts giggling. That freaked me the hell out. Instantly, I call the cops and tell them some crazy drugged-up wackos are in my backyard, and I fear for my life. Please send somebody. Went into my bathroom, locked the door, just waiting for the "here's Johnny" moment to happen. Dispatcher informed me cops were there, but no one was outside the house. They must have ran off into the alleyway when the cops showed up. When I was 18, I went to a college, British college, not university, in a fairly large city. I had to get an hour-long bus into the city, and my lesson plan left huge gaps during the day, sometimes 4 hours at a time. I had a lot of time to kill, so I started taking up swimming at a local leisure center. Pool was pretty busy, but everyone kept to themselves. This day I needed to piss, so I headed to the bathroom and used the urinal. While I was pissing, this dude slides up to the urinal next to me. This is already pretty weird, as most guys know you don't use the neighboring urinal to someone if others are free. Some people are a bit clueless though, so I didn't think much of it. He then, however, starts brazenly staring down at my dick. I quickly finish up and leave the bathroom without washing my hands. I carry on my swim unbothered, then get changed. As I leave the swimming pool, I see the guy waiting for me, leaning on the wall outside. He's probably about 5'10", 40 years old and quite slobby and blokey looking. Doesn't seem the type to go swimming alone to get fit. I'm 6'2", thin, but fairly confident in myself. As I make my way back to college, he starts following me. This goes on for about a mile, so I decide to test him and start crossing busy roads at weird places. Of course, he stays on my trail, having to basically dodge cars to keep up. I decide to forget walking the last mile back and take the busy shuttle bus to the local uni that goes close to the college. Again, of course, he follows and gets on. Luckily, there were not many seats free, and he can't sit next to me. I ride for about 5 minutes, ring the bell, then hop off and get the fuck out of there. I see him get off the bus as well, but I was quick enough to duck down an alley and catch a taxi before the creep could follow suit. I have no idea what his intentions were, but thankfully, he only got a look at my pecker. I was about 10 at the time, and my brother, also 10, were taking swimming lessons at a public pool about 10 minutes away from our house. We would go for our lessons every Friday evening, and usually afterwards we would just chill in the spa pool till our father was ready. On this particular Friday evening, my brother and I were in the spa pool doing kid stuff and whatnot, when I noticed a man sitting directly across the spa from me, just kind of staring. The spa is about 12 meters in length. The man was tall and thin. He had a very pointy nose and button-like eyes. He had very short, thin gray hair, and his skin was unusually red. I didn't think much of this at the time, as I had seen this man around the pool before, and I think my dad may even had a conversation with him at one point. But he continued to stare, and it made me so uncomfortable that I had to get out of the spa and sat outside waiting for my father. I started seeing him everywhere. Wherever I was, he was there. Grocery stores, malls, outside of my school, and always at my Friday night swimming lesson. I never told my dad about seeing him everywhere. I thought maybe I was overreacting, and I was very naive to the obvious danger. I remember one instance when I was at a department store with my mom, and I saw him down the end of every aisle we went down, and said nothing. Red flags started to go off when he decided to carry a camera around with him. He would always be in a completely black outfit with his camera bag around his neck, just watching me. One day I was at the mall with a few friends when one of them pointed him out before I had even noticed. I told them about the man and the way he looked at me, and my friend's oldest sister advised me to tell security so that he would be removed. As soon as he saw them coming, he got up and left. Flash forward about 2 years or so. Haven't seen my stalker friend for so long, now he's becoming a distant memory. Until I get called into the school office because my uncle was here to collect me early. As soon as I saw him there, arms open, in my fucking school office waiting for me, I felt sick. I had forgotten about this man, and 2 years later he has the nerve to come and try to get me out of school. And he has his camera. I marched right past him and to the officewoman and simply said, "This man is not my uncle," and walked back to class. At lunches, he was outside my school. He would wave and try to get me to come over, and he would hold up a chocolate bar as some kind of child bait. So his random school appearances continue to the point the school needs to contact my parents and let them know the situation. My dad was distraught, having actually spoken to this man before, and demanded the police be contacted so we could get a restraining order or something. That's when we found out. The man was a convicted sex offender. The police took his camera and found hundreds and hundreds of photos of me, some of which were zoomed up into my bedroom windows at my own home. We got a restraining order, and thankfully, I haven't seen him since. Summer 2009. where I'd just turned 13. Like any unpopular teenager, I decided to have my few friends with me to spend my birthday party at the swimming pool, maybe 45 minutes away from the area where I live. It's a pretty nice pool, with a kids area and some rapids, which are usually more of a lazy river type deal. I used to go there all the time, but I haven't been there since, for reasons you'll understand. My friends and I have spent a fun-filled couple of hours in the pool when the time comes to leave and maybe head back to my house to eat cake and ice cream and all that crap that teens eat at birthdays. As you do, we headed into the showers and then into the changing rooms. The changing rooms at this pool are those stalls which aren't floor-to-ceiling walls, with gaps at the bottom and top. They're about 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters, and there's a bench opposite the door. Now, I won't lie. At the age of 13, I was a really slow changer, but in the group of friends who were mostly girls, including myself, there wasn't much difference. So I'm getting changed. I'm standing there in my towel, just about to start putting my underwear on, when I hear something. I probably would have been able to avoid a lot of shit if I just looked up. But then, hey, I was getting changed and I was concentrating. It's when I finally got my underwear on that I look up, and I unfortunately lock eyes with a guy who has his head in between the wall and the ceiling. Like literally, he has jammed his head over the wall to look at me, a young teenage girl, changing. I'm shocked, because what the heck do you do in this situation? He pulls his head back when he realizes I've seen him, and I feel sick. I have chills up and down my neck as I try and get dressed as fast as I can. My skin crawled. It was absolutely awful. Story does not end there. Fast forward through a few minutes of the fastest changing of my life, and now I'm fully clothed with one trainer on and the other in my hand. I have no idea what I'm doing now, but I'm pretty sure he's going to come back, so I put myself on the bench, crouched in a stance I'm sure any action hero would be proud of. Lo and behold, back comes his face, jammed back into this tiny gap. It must have hurt, but apparently sacrifices have to be made in the pursuit of being a pervert. This time, though, I'm damn ready. I don't know whether anyone's ever had a hard shoe sole forcibly jammed into their eye and nose twice in a row, but it looked painful. I hope it was bloody painful at least. That was basically it from him. I put on my shoes, I walked calmly out to my friends, and then we met my parents at the doors. I didn't tell any of them, not even when I passed him out in the reception area. He didn't see me, but I saw him. And let me tell you, my greatest regret nowadays was that I didn't tell my dad right then and watch him slug that asshole right in his dumbass pervert face. I'm a female and about 7 years old at the time. We were on a family holiday in Florida at the time. My mother had inadvertently booked us a pretty substandard hotel. I say hotel, but even that was stretching it. It was shit. And my father, my brother, and I decided to go for a swim in the pool, as it was quite humid that day. The pool was naturally packed, mostly with kids, but there was also this one guy standing in the middle. I suppose this must have really stayed with me because I remember his face vividly. I'm 24 now. He was about 6'2", mid to late 30s, crew cut, mustache, well built, and had the creepiest bland smile on his face. He was also staring straight ahead at this little blonde girl playing with a beach ball. He clearly was not her father and didn't seem to be with any of the other kids as far as I could tell. He was just standing there, alone, in the middle of the pool surrounded by a bunch of prepubescent kids. In spite of this, I was unconcerned. I was there with my older brother and father, and I felt perfectly safe. So me, being the badass mofo that I was, threw myself cannonball style into the pool, surfaced, adjusted my goggles, yes I had goggles because I was cool like that, and went exploring underwater. There wasn't anything particularly interesting to report, except there was something protruding from the weird guy's trunks, out front. I swam around underwater, giving him a wide berth of course, and find his penis is outside of his shorts. I realized now he had an erection, but obviously at the time I hadn't a clue what that was. I resurface again and study his face because maybe he doesn't know that it fell out. I was still about 10 feet away from him at this point, so I thought I was being discreet, and I didn't want to embarrass him because surely it was an accident that it fell out. He realized I'd seen it. He tore his eyes away from the little girl. As his eyes locked on mine, I felt as if though they were boring into me. They seemed to darken in an instant, and I have honestly never felt so frightened in my life. I think I've even let out an audible whimper. We stood there staring at each other for about 10 seconds, me frozen on the spot, when he turned back to the little girl once again, bland smile back in place. I booked it out of the pool, run over to my father and exclaimed, "Daddy, the man's penis is outside of his shorts." My father's face darkens, and he tells me to go back to the room with my brother. I don't actually know what happened after that. My dad never told me. He just said the guy went away. Either way, I'm glad I didn't have to deal with pedo pool guy ever again. I'm in my late 20s and 36 weeks pregnant right now. I've always been pretty fit and had made a big effort to stay in shape while pregnant, so I've been swimming a few times a week at a local pool. I like to go when it's slow and not very many people are around, but after this experience, I'm rethinking that. I was just finishing up my laps late morning on a Wednesday when this place is practically deserted, and head to the hot tub where I'll sit for just a few minutes to stretch. That's when I see her, or rather, smell her first. A thick, pungent odor permeates the alcove where the therapy pool is tucked away out of plain view. It smells of cigarettes and unwashed hair. It's a smell that only fairly deranged people take on due to the total lack of bodily awareness. She may not be that old, but she is very aged. She is slouched over with a curved spine and very long, stringy hair, yellowy gray. She smiles at me with a mouth full of rotten yellow teeth. I smile back, trying to be friendly. She seems mentally ill, and I don't want to be mean. However, she gets into the tub and sits uncomfortably close to me, still watching my face closely. I get up to leave as I'm pretty much done anyway, and being pregnant, I limit my time in the hot water. She notices my belly right away. "You're pregnant." I nod and smile a little, still walking away. She continues, "Where's your husband?" "Around." I lie over my shoulder as I walk off. I'm slightly weirded out, but not too bad. I get back into the pool to float for a while and relax. Then it's time to go, and I head to the showers. Right away I see her. She is soaping herself up liberally and muttering to herself. I am getting a strong vibe not to go near this woman. Normally odd behavior doesn't really faze me. I'm not easily intimidated by women, but I instinctively held back to wait for her to be done showering. It became clear she was not going to finish up anytime soon, so I choose a shower furthest away and start washing my hair. I keep her in my periphery, but I don't engage. She sees me again and announces, "You're pregnant! Look at your belly!" and continues to try and make conversation. I pretend not to hear her and turn away a little to avoid eye contact and just start soaping up. I take off my bikini to wash all the chlorine smell off me. I'm just washing my body as usual until I hear breathing behind my shoulder, very, very close. I turn. She's inches away from me, breathing hard. Hands working quickly, I can see her shriveled breasts sagging and what seems to be thousands of layers of folded, wrinkly skin all over her. She is muttering and panting. "So beautiful, so beautiful." I realize she has her hands on her vagina, rubbing like mad. I'm so surprised I just stand there for a frozen second, then quickly grab my towel and get the fuck out. She doesn't follow me to my relief. Heading back to the changing area, there is the same insanely strong odor, not just of cigarettes, but of stale booze. I see her things, a pile of plastic bags and some wipes strewn about that are bloodied. I get dressed in a bathroom stall that locks, and thankfully I make it to my car without seeing or smelling her again. My family traveled from the Midwest to the East Coast almost every year. We usually drove through Canada to New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and then up to Maine, where my dad's family is from. We stopped at various tourist spots and resorts while on the trip. When I was somewhere around 6 or 7 years old, we were staying at a family-style resort in New Hampshire. It was a very large complex with 4 buildings full of hotel rooms, all facing each other with a parking lot to the left, a small park picnicking area in the middle, and the outdoor pool with a fence around it to the right. Each building had 2 levels with outdoor stairs, and each room had a door that went outside, not into a hallway. There was a path from the bottom of the stairs through the small park to the pool. I have always been quick to get ready, so while my mom, dad, and sister, 1 year old, were getting ready to go to the pool, I was getting antsy and wanted to go check out the tacky water slide tacked onto the side of the pool. I remember my dad being busy and distracted while I said, "I'm going out to the pool," and began walking outside and down the stairs. You could see the park and the pool from our balcony, but my dad wanted me to wait. I didn't and proceeded to walk by myself out to the pool. I was walking along the path through the little park when 2 big arms picked me up and started pulling me back. This is what I have the sharpest memory of, my purple jelly sandals being lifted off the ground under me. I didn't immediately turn around because I just figured it was my dad dragging me back to the room, mad that I had disobeyed him. I just sighed and accepted my fate as being in trouble. Then, I heard my dad in the distance yell, "Hey, get off my daughter!" And so I finally turned to see who the hell was holding me. It was some guy, really tall, really thin, wearing dark colors. He had a car that was pulled up right to the park, not parked in a parking spot or anything, only about 20 feet away. I looked and saw my dad barreling down the motel stairs holding my sister's water noodle and wearing his bright green neon water shorts. This was probably 96. The dude saw my dad, dropped me, and then dove into the car, which promptly took off. I cried because I had scraped my leg in the fall. My dad chased the car for a short while, but they quickly picked up speed and were gone. I have no idea if the license plate was recorded or the cops were called. We did continue to go to the pool and play, but I remember that my dad was in a rightfully bad mood the rest of the afternoon, and I couldn't get him to play in the pool with me. He usually was a big reader, but he just sat in a chair peering around the parking lot and looking miffed the rest of the afternoon. Who knows what would have happened if my dad hadn't been walking out behind me looking out the window. I was honestly probably 10 seconds away from being thrown in that car and taken God knows where.